in here.
What's up, everybody? It's your favorite other options favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the SXS Hot Flame, not to be confused with a cool flame that I imagine looks something like this. This is on loan to me from Robert D, good friend of mine, big help to this channel, as he pretty much provides me with everything that he buys that I'm not buying, which is a fair amount of stuff, to be honest, as I think we would all agree at this point. So we're going to talk about this guy, we're going to compare him with the Blur, we're going to compare him with the MMC version, and then we're going to wrap up. But before we can do any of that, we have to look at accessories. So he comes with two swords, and they have the silver finish on the blades that look nice, some decent sculpt work in there as well as some decent sculpt work on the handle. And he holds those fairly fine with two thumb joints that are very strange. They're not bad, they're just strange, and we will talk about those here momentarily. And the sword can tab into the side of the vehicle using that tab. I don't think it can go backward though. But it can definitely go forward, but it does bend the blade a little bit, so I'd be careful of that. And he comes with two other weapons. He comes with his rifle, I guess. Very nice sculpt work, but no other love has gone into it. And then the saw blade, which is more of a G1 movie reference, which, you know, is not my thing when it comes to the IDW inspired stuff. I feel like they should just keep it IDW. The IDW stuff is strong enough to stand on its own. But nonetheless, he comes with one black plastic with a pin that holds a translucent blade. That is a nice sculpt. And he can hold both of those, but nowhere near as well. The gun does peg into the top of the roof in car mode, as does the saw, but you can't really spin it anymore. The saw can also tab into the side of the vehicle using that tab. And lastly, he comes with two alternate faces. One is like a really extreme grimace, and the other is like a pretty good smile. If I had this figure, I would definitely use this smile, but he comes with two of those. As you can see, they're on orange plastic, so the face is painted. So let's talk about the figure. Light piping, which isn't my favorite, but for Chug, I'm more okay with it than I am for Masterpiece, so I guess it's ultimately okay. We have yellow paint added to the crest on his face, but we do have some chipping on that yellow paint. We have some gray paint added into the center of the middle piece there. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, that's up in there. And then we have some gray face paint and then the dead eyes, because in order to get the light piping to work, you need to have it angled just right. And I'm not going to be able to show you that here, so that's a bummer. The head, however, is on a hinged swivel, so the articulation is fantastic. You get all the way down to there, all the way up to there, and it keeps the sculpt, for the most part, a little bit of gappage, but for the most part it keeps the sculpt. And then you get the swivel, so that's really well done. Let's back out to talk about the rest of the fella. So, the shoulders... There's a lot of issues with the build of this thing, okay? But we're gonna get there. Just bear with me. The shoulders are on a squeaky joint. Oh, it's just basic. Oh, it sounds terrible. Sounds like it was made you know where. I'm not gonna say it, not today. Fast toys, maybe I am. So, and then they have some yellow paint here on the shoulder. We have a hinge here that gets you the arm out, so that's actually nice and clean, gets you up to 90 degrees. And we have a bicep swivel just above the elbow, and I think there's like another cap here. I don't know. So it seems like this should swivel here, but it doesn't want to because it's a square, so maybe it's not supposed to, and you're just supposed to use this, which is ultimately fine. So you have a single hinged elbow here, however, you do have another hinge here that can kind of fake a full elbow, even though that elbow is kind of, the second joint is kind of above the bicep. It's ultimately fine, it will ultimately work for poses and such, so you don't need to worry about it. Detailings wise, we just have this silver finish on these, and these should be extended out as far as they can be. And we have some pink detailings in the wheels that look fantastic. For the hands, they're their own beast as well. So they're on a swivel and a hinge, but the hinge is at like the base of the hand. So that gets you in and out, and then the swivel gets you around. And then the thumb is on a swivel. So that's what puts tension or pressure on the weapons, but as you could see earlier, it does some better than others. Same for the other side. We have yellow paint here for the chest. That looks fine. And then we have this darker kind of maroon paint for the lower abdomen, and that looks fine. You do have a waist swivel. It's not the best. But I mean, it should get you all the range that you really need, but it's not the best. And then these wings on the back, we do have some nice orange paint on there, and they do articulate, which I do find nice. And when I was posing them, I did find myself kind of moving these about a little bit in order to get the kind of look I was looking for. So I dig that. Some orange paint there in the pelvis. And then we have universals for hips. They're on friction joints, and they are squeaky, squeaky as well. So not good feels. And then we have a thigh swivel built into the bottom of the universal. It's this section here, the torso and the pelvis and the hips to where they meet the thighs, that seems, I mean, you can hear it. It seems very insecure. And I don't mean like he doesn't like to look at the mirror and stuff. I mean that it just doesn't seem stable. And then we have some orange paint added that looks fantastic on the lower legs. And then we have a double hinge knee that gets you 90 degrees with a squeak along with it. Let's see if this one squeaks. Sure does. And then we have some detailings down here on the calves. We have some silver paint, some red paint, some more silver paint, and all that stuff looks great. And the pink tires, the pink like energy inside the tires looks fantastic. It's a very Alex Milne thing, and I like that they carried that through. For the feet, we have a little bit of orange paint added there, and then we have, it's the same sort of joint that they use for the wrist. So it might be a ball peg here that comes down to a hinge. So you get an ankle tilt up and down, and then using this part of it, you get the rocker. The rocker's not the best, but it's not the worst either. And then the back of the figure cleans up phenomenally well. I mean, it doesn't really even look like a transformer. So there are things that are done really well here, and there are things that are not done well. I will say that it doesn't feel, well, let's save it because we're getting ready to talk about a few comparisons. So there he is with the SXS previous release of Blur, or Overclocking, I think he was called. And this was an awesome figure. A lot of fun, some interesting things, some good sculpt work, etc., etc. But this one is much more solid than this one. It's just, this feels like a better overall product. It just feels more, I don't know. I mean, you can make the argument that this is chunky for what it's supposed to be, and I hear you there, but I'm talking about just the materials and the stability of the mold feels a lot more secure than this. I mean, this is a year and some change old, and I'm shaking onto that hip. This, fresh out the box, and we got some, you know what I mean? So, in a lot of ways, I think that in terms of design-wise, this is probably an improvement. In terms of build-wise, it's a step backward. And there he is next to the MMC option. And I think that I like the look of this better, but this is just an infinitely better made figure. You know, this looks a lot closer to the source material. It looks a lot more like IDW Rodimus to me. I think that this really evokes the character. This, you know, you definitely know who it's supposed to be, but it's not as on the money sculpt and design wise as this one. But it's just infinitely better in terms of quality. Believe what I say when I tell you, this is one we're going to have to go step by step on. Speaking of steps, let's start with the feet. We're going to close this up here. We're going to wrap this little silver piece around. Close this up here, wrap this little silver piece around. We're going to spin the foot 180. Rotate it back, keeping an eye on this little slot there. For the back of the foot, we're going to open up these red flaps. We're going to pull down on this double hinge these pieces here that have a tendency to come off of the mushroom cap that they're attached to. There's one. We're going to spin that perpendicular to the foot. We're going to tab this peg into that section we talked about on the top of the foot. Good grief. And then we're going to bring this piece down and close up into that slot to lock the foot in. All right, we're gonna do the same for the other side. Come on. There. And bring down. There's still some up in there. Rotate around. Plug into, it's like this little notch system. I don't have it quite right, but you get the general idea. Bring this around and we'll interlock it there. And then bring these flaps back. And we'll stop there. Now we make them explode, so to speak. So we spin the head around. Open up the chest, which should bring all of this junk up, and then this stuff starts to fall apart on you. Now, let's see what we have to do. We have to bring these shoulder pieces all the way around. They're connected on this same bar here. And then we have to bring this piece up. Actually, we need to, and then we need to get to this windshield as well. Shout out to Bobby Dainty Fingers. Let's get my little Ace Milo tool. Spin this around and to the back. And we want to get this windshield up. This flips over and up on top. This comes down and sits over it. And this will sit up like this. But we need to spin the shoulders at this mushroom cap here. So we brought the bar down 180 and now we're flipping the shoulders. Good grief. Back 180. I'm gonna shatter windows up in here. And let's hang tight there for a second. Let me get my bearings. So now we need to make him sit in his own lap, basically. So untab the pelvis. Bring the legs down and around on the universal. And what we're looking to do is make this tab on the pelvis go into that slot in the thigh. So you have to spin the leg back around and that will go in. Now, you need to connect this foot with this foot, but in order to do so, you need to have this piece on the underside, which is challenging. So I'm going to do it the best that I can, which may not be very good at all. So we're going to get it positioned. We're going to move this up. We're going to tab the feet together. We're going to tab the crotch into the thighs. This should sit down in there. On the top, we take this silver piece, we connect it into the front, and then we'll clean up. Like our tires came unpegged and stuff. Let me go ahead and clean that up and we'll get right back. So let's get the arms done. Rotate, make sure that the blasters are collapsed. Rotate this orange piece 180. And then use the double jointed elbow that isn't really a double jointed elbow to get this peg to go into that, or this slot to go into that peg, or that peg to go into that slot rather. You know what I'm talking about. This isn't the first review you watched. All right. Same for this side. So we're going to spin these 180, and then we're going to use the double jointed elbow and fold this up and peg in. Easy for me to say. There. And then our last step is to secure this piece. Push it down, it's on a double hinge, then it will lock into the back of the vehicle, and then these two pieces come down and secures around the screw holes that are in the back of there's like 2 tension pegs that'll cover down on it. And that's it. I'll get it cleaned up. We'll take a look at it. And I think it's a pretty great representation. Now, you can get this, like you see mine's a little bit crooked and stuff. You can get this a little bit cleaner by making sure that the knee joints are perfectly symmetrical, but I think for review purposes, you get the idea. I think that the color breakup between the maroon, the silver, all that kind of stuff, I think that looks good. I think the orange paint looks great. I think that these hinges here really help sell this thing. Like, this really makes it look like IDW Rodimus to me. Let's see what else. Rolls like a champ. Size comparison wise, we'll put them next to Tiger Tracks. So I think that works. And let me see. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. You can push these 2 pieces all the way forward too, which will help. You see how mine's a little off center? You know, and that's just because my knees aren't quite right. But like I said, you can keep messing with it in solidifying it. But for review purposes, I mean, that's basically it. It's just like slightly off-centered. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I dig it an awful lot. And I think that the transformation is still interesting, which is something that I applauded them with overclocking. So I still dig the engineering design behind it. I think these orange things show up well, like, you know, from the stripes on the feet, because they look like headlights now. I dig it. I think it's pretty cool, at least in car mode. Real quick, I forgot, before I transform this guy back. My friend Robert D has zero faith in my transforming skills on camera, so he did an impression of what the transformation sequence would look like, and I am happy to report that he was wrong, but let's take a look at his impression of my transformation sequences. Final thoughts wise, let's talk about the problems. The problems mainly come down to there is a fiddliness to the transformation, even though it's an interesting transformation. There's a fiddliness to the figure in terms of solidarity and solidity. There's a fiddliness to the plastic in terms of materials, and the tolerances are all over the place to include some hip joints that are too loose and plenty of joints that are too squeaky tight. And that's where the issues really lie with this guy, is in build and quality. It just doesn't feel as nice as you would like it to feel. That doesn't mean there's not great things about it. There are. We're going to get to those. But the quality of build and the tolerance of joints and the quality of materials is what holds me back from giving this guy a solid recommend. But let's not dwell on the negatives. Let's move on to the positives, and they are: the sculpt is beautiful. The action figure element is definitely there. And the design is very interesting and cool. It cleans up like a champ. So between the articulation, the sculpt, and the action figure element, I can recommend this, but it is a very soft recommend, and if I were you, I'd wait for it to go on sale, which I would guess it will inevitably do. I think paying full retail for this was probably not the best choice. I would imagine this will eventually go for clearance type prices. That being said, I think that if you are a photographer or you like to, like play with the figure, that doesn't mean transform it, just with the action figure element of it, I think you'll love him. If you love IDW Rodimus, I think you'll love him because he does look like he just walked off the pages. They definitely nailed the sculpt and kind of visual cues better than the MMC one. The MMC one just works better as a purchase, as a figure, as a toy. So it's a very soft recommend for me. If you can get them for a decent price, it's worth picking up, especially if you love the character. But they need to step up their materials and they need to step up their quality and build in order to get a strong recommend out of me. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.